Welcome to Fresh Off the Set. I'm Kari Hawker-Diaz.
And I'm Brooke Mangum. Thanks so much for joining us for another episode. Oh, today's guest, I just love him to pieces. Former coworker Brian Morris.
He is honestly one of my favorite people on this planet. I miss him so much. We still stay in contact, but I didn't even know this being friends with him, but he has a fear of flying, or had. He would get on and off planes. He would just always be thinking
That's shocking, because I know that you guys don't know what Brian Morris looks like, but he doesn't look like somebody that would be afraid of flying at all.
Yeah.
Not even close.
He is. So what would happen is he would write on these note cards like, okay, and he would talk to a pilot. This is what this sound is. It's totally normal. This is what turbulence is. It's totally normal. And then he eventually turned these flashcards into Flight Deck 365. They are cards that you can take on a plane to help somebody who has a fear of flying.
What a beautiful thing to take like the thing that you are most afraid of and turn it into something that's powerful. And now he's sharing it with the rest of the world so that we can all not be afraid.
That's right. And he's not afraid anymore. He talks about it. He's like, you know what? I can fly now. It used to be paralyzing to me. And he created this to help everyone else. So should we give it a listen?
Let's do it.
Brian Morris, I'm so excited to talk with you today about what you have created. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited about this opportunity.
Oh my gosh, you're killing it. I'm so proud of you. But if people aren't familiar, can you share a bit about your personal experience and the fear of flying and how scared you were and how it inspired the creation of Flight Deck Fear of Flying flashcards?
Yeah, so I think when people see me in person, they think that guy probably doesn't have fear of anything, because I think I look bigger and badder than I actually am. A lot of people tell me that anyway. When I get on an airplane and I tell a flight attendant I have fear of flying, they literally look at me and roll their eyes, because I probably don't look like the kind of guy that's going to have fear of flying. But I had a severe fear of flying, like literally would get on airplanes, and before the airplane took off, I would get off the airplane. And I had an experience where I got on and off an airplane 3 different times before I actually got on a plane that day and went to where I was going. So that's how bad my fear of flying was.
Was it your whole life?
Yeah, it started when I was about, let's say I was 12, and my family took our first flight, and I wasn't exactly sure what to expect. Mm-hmm. That's what's great about these cards. They help people who are first-time flyers as well to know kind of what to expect, right? It can kind of be like a manual to, what your flight's going to be. And so I got on the plane and things just kind of went haywire. We were in a smaller plane. I think it only held about 20 people. We were going over the ocean. We were going from one island to another island, and the turbulence was horrible. And
so you had a bad first experience.
Yeah, and I think that most people would say, well, it was just a lot of turbulence and it was bad weather. And but I think for a 12-year-old and a first-time flying experience, it just kicked off my fear of flying. And from that point forward, I had a very difficult time flying. In fact, at one point I used to work for Channel 2.
Yes.
And
we miss you.
Yeah, thank you. I miss it very much. But my boss, Kurt Smith, would come to me all the time and be like, hey, we've got a trip to New Orleans for a basketball game or something. And I would be like, I can't do it. I can't get on a plane. I think it kind of started out in the beginning where I'd make up excuses. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'd probably lie about having to go to a wedding or something.
Like, I'm out of town. I can't do it.
Yeah, I was embarrassed. I didn't really want to say I have a fear of flying. But he figured it out. We figured it out. I had a fear of flying. And so I just missed out on a lot of opportunities. And later in life, a friend came to me and said, would you be the officiant of our wedding? And I said, yes. And the wedding was planned to be here in Salt Lake City. And then a week later, they changed the location to Miami.
Oh, boy.
And I said, great. And then I went home and lost my mind. How am I going to do this? They're depending on me. I'm the guy they chose. This wedding's in 30 days.
Are they going to probably have to fly?
So then there was an entire group of us going, right? And I couldn't convince all of those people to get in a van and drive to Miami from Salt Lake. So I figured I've got 30 days. I've got to figure this out. And so I got online, started doing a bunch of research. I found this group called Love Fly. And they have a lot of podcasts. And they have a lot of information. I was writing down all of my information. And I was writing it on these cards, these 3x5 cards. And I took those cards with me on the airplane, and I noticed that as things were happening on the plane, I was able to remind myself that all of these things were normal. And I had a pilot who was helping me out as well. And when I got back from the wedding, so I got there and I got back and everything was fine. It wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. The pilot asked me, Captain Emma, she asked me, what was it that really helped you? Because she wants to help other people, right? Mm-hmm. What got me through this? And I just told her about my 3x5 cards. And she was like, hold on, wait a minute, tell me about these cards. And so I sent her a copy of them. She lives in the UK and I live here. And so I sent her a copy of them via email, and she messaged me back and said, you need to make these available to everyone. This is a great tool. This is going to help other people. So she helped me refine the cards, make sure that they were technically correct. Mm-hmm. And we had them professionally printed, and we created a website and we started selling them. And it was really interesting because, pun intended, the cards just took off. The minute we put them on the market, people who have a fear of flying were buying them. And that's kind of how they came about. And that's kind of how my fear of flying ended in a way. You know, by having the knowledge, working with the Love Fly group, working with Captain Emma, and then having these fear of flying flashcards really got me over my fear of flying. I have very little anxiety now when I fly. I'm a little bit more anxious right now talking in a microphone to you.
You're doing amazing. You're doing amazing. Well, and I can see how you have helped so many people, but why, in your opinion, do you think fear of flying is such a common phobia among people worldwide? I mean, you get on a plane, you just kind of, when you see a little turbulence happening, you kind of look around, people get a little more tense. It's pretty common. Yeah.
And I think some of it is scientific. So our minds work in an unusual way when we can't see what's going on. When you're riding in a car and you see a bump ahead, you kind of know it's coming, you're prepared for it. When you're in a plane, you can't see ahead, and even if you could, you might not see turbulence, although you could probably see clouds, but you might be prepared for it, like, hey, we're going to have a few bumps here for a minute. But our bodies react, and they overreact. So one thing that I learned through the Love Fly group is if you were to get a cup of water and put it on your tray and watch that water move during turbulence, it barely moves. But your body thinks it's moving a lot more than it really is.
Interesting.
The sensations, right? And so I think it's because of some of those things that the way our body's reacting causes us to react. And I think you would have a hard time finding anyone that thinks turbulence is amazing, right? On a plane, don't we want just a nice, smooth flight? And I think that's why airlines have invested so much money in detecting turbulence so they can move above it or around it to make the flight more comfortable for everybody.
Yeah. Is there anything else we need to know about turbulence? Because you see all these videos now of people posting, and things are hanging from ceilings and bags are everywhere. And is there anything you want people to know?
Yeah. Well, in all of my fear of flying groups, so I belong to a lot of fear of flying groups online, and that's the focus right now. Is there was an incident today, there was an incident last week, there was an incident a month ago, and people are really, really focused on what's called severe turbulence, which is extremely rare. It's like, I think they would tell you 1% of billions of flights are going to have severe turbulence, but it does happen. And you know what Captain Emma or the Love Fly group would tell you is just keep your seatbelt on and you'll be fine. It's not going to damage the plane. It's not going to flip the plane over. The only way you would get hurt is if you were not seatbelted in or out of your seat. Then you may hit the top of the plane
or somebody else.
Or, one of the trays might, hit you. So it is scary, but I also think that it's rare. And I also think that if you're seatbelted in, you'll be fine. One of the cards in the deck, actually, well, there's probably 2 or 3 in the deck that talk about turbulence, but the card would tell you, there could be turbulence. Turbulence is normal, and just hang in there. It'll be over. You got to really put your energy into trusting the pilots, right? Because that's their job, and they're up there looking for turbulence. They're reporting turbulence, and other pilots are reporting turbulence, and they're doing everything they can to.
They don't want it either.
They don't want it either.
Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe pilots like turbulence a little bit, but probably not in a commercial flight because they know that, somebody could be walking around at some point. But I think they do their best to detect it and get away from it.
Sure. Okay. Getting back to the flashcards, what was the developmental process like for these flashcards? Did you collab? I know you mentioned the captain that you work with.
Right. Yeah, with Captain Emma. She's been amazing. So here's something that's kind of funny about that. Do you know the story about Elton John and Bernie Taupin?
No.
So they never met in person, and they lived in two different maybe cities or countries. I'm not even sure. But they would message each other back and forth about what songs they were writing. And one person would write the lyrics and the other person would write the music, and then it would become this really cool song. And I joke with Captain Emma that we're Elton, and in fact, I call her Elton because I'll send her a group of cards, and she'll correct them, and she'll send them back to me. And in the end, we created this really cool product that's on the market, and she's put a lot of time and effort into it. She's a retired captain of an airline. She's extremely smart. She travels the world and puts on workshops and talks to people about fears and phobias, and she's just amazing. I'm very, very lucky to have met her and have her as part of my team for Flight Deck.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Can you give us an overview of what information and techniques are included in the Flight Deck Fear of Flying flashcards? I have one in front of me, so I'm just going to read one. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so it's a deck of cards. One says, you will hear chimes. These sounds are used for communication between flight crew and cabin crew. Chimes are not a warning signal. This is normal. Okay, that's good, because even I was like, okay, does that mean like, ding, there's like scariness coming up, or what is that? That's good to know.
Well, so here's the thing. If you're a first-time flyer, you may not even know what those sounds are for.
Yeah.
If you're a fearful flyer and paranoid like me, I used to think these were secret messages that the pilot was telling the flight attendants to prepare for a crash landing.
Mm-hmm. Ding, get in your seats, we're crashing.
Yeah, and so those would trigger me. Sure. And so then finding out that you probably have not even connected this yourself. If somebody needs a glass of water, they're going to hit the button and it's going to ding, and the flight attendant's going to come and ask you what you want. So there could be dings all throughout your flight that literally mean nothing.
That's
other
just
than
people like requesting something, or
a service button. You'll hear those dings just before landing because they're letting the flight crew know, hey, we're preparing to land now. So start putting things away, get people in place, make sure everybody's got their seatbelts on, and usually within about a 30-minute period from those dings and everybody starting to kind of secure the cabin, you'll land. So, they're just, they're warnings. They might also be a ding that the pilot needs to talk to a flight attendant to pick up a phone. Maybe he needs a cup of coffee or something. Sure. So I used to get set off by those things. So that's why I created that card to help other people who might have triggers. I have a lot of trigger cards in here that I don't think trigger people, but help them understand some of my triggers, and I'm assuming they're probably other people's triggers. But I used to get on the plane and they would start doing that safety demonstration, and it would freak me out because they would talk about a crash landing. If you needed a bag of air, you pull the bag down from the ceiling and put it over your head. And that used to give me a lot of anxiety, but there's a card in here that talks about how that's normal. They talk about this in every flight, and it's just a regulation that they have to do, and you should always be prepared and be reminded before each flight, just in case something happens. And that's maybe 1 in a billion chance that something would happen. We've had a lot of incidents lately, a lot of airplane incidents lately. But here's the thing you have to remember. No one died in any of those incidences. Well, I guess there was a man who had a heart attack, but I wouldn't consider that as a result of the actual plane incident, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, he maybe would have had the heart attack anyway, but nobody's really died in any of these incidences. And in every case, the planes have landed perfectly safe. And so, yeah, there might be a small incident, but it's still extremely safe to fly.
Yeah. Is there another one in there that you want to?
Yeah, let me just flip.
I know there's many. How many are there? Do you know?
Yeah, there's 54 cards, but there's also tips and tricks.
Oh.
So I'm going to read one of those to you. How's that?
54 cards and tips and tricks.
Yeah. So just the number one tip, I think is really obvious, but when you have a fear of flying, you don't always remember everything that you should do. And so that's what these cards do, is remind you of some of the things. So tip number one is arrive to the airport early so you aren't stressed getting through security checks and finding your gate. So I used to wait until the last minute because I didn't want to get on the airplane, and I would be late, and then I would be running through the airport, and then I would be stressed out, which caused me more stress on top of my flight anxiety. So now I go 2 hours early. I get through security checks. I might hit a restaurant or some of the shops and
just
enjoy
chill.
myself a little bit. Yeah, chill. And then get ready to get on the plane. So, and that's another thing, like driving to the airport, right? Like if you're early, you're not going to be trying to get through traffic. You're not going to be trying to get through security. You're going to be a little bit more relaxed.
That's a really good point, because if you're already stressed about being late, it can just make you more sensitive to other things, and so that's a really good one. How do these flashcards, in your opinion, differ from like traditional books or other fear of flying resources? I think there's something to be said maybe with like can be in your hand.
Yeah. So I had a customer message me the other day. This is the great thing about this business is it's kind of a community as well. People will message me after their flights and tell me what worked or what didn't work, or thank you, these were amazing. And I had a customer message me and tell me that she loves to be able to hold them in her hand because it's kind of tactile, right? Like she can fumble through these cards while she's flying. I think it takes her mind off of flying, and she really liked that. I like it because it's kind of like a mini book, you know. You can flip through the pages. It doesn't have too much information. It has just enough information. I think with a book, that could be a lot of information, something you might want to read 30 days before the flight.
Not on when you're maybe on the flight or at the airport.
Right. And I think with these, you can download them immediately and use them on your phone, or you can, order these a couple of days in advance and get them. It takes us about 2 to 3 days to get them to your home, but you can have them in your hand. But I think just being able to have these tidbits of information to remind you what's really going on the plane, especially for first-time flyers, because if you've never been on a plane before, this will literally tell you everything that's going to happen from takeoff to landing. And sometimes Emma and I talk about this. If Emma, the pilot, was sitting next to you on the airplane, you would be able to ask her, what is that sound? Why is the plane doing this? And not all of us can have Emma sitting next to us, but you can have these cards, which I call a pilot in your pocket, to answer all those questions throughout the flight.
The whole time. Okay, walk us through a scenario of where a user might use the flashcards to calm their anxiety during a flight. Would you suggest maybe like having them in your hand if it's your first flight?
Yeah.
So you have them right there with you, know where they are, and sitting down with them and just keeping them kind of in that pocket in front of you or right with you? Yeah,
and that's what I do. I literally, they sort of become my safety blanket, right? My security blanket. I hold them through the whole flight. But here's one that says you may hear loud noises or feel vibrations as the landing gear doors close. So after the plane takes off, the landing gear is going to come up and the doors are going to close. But it kind of creates some wind issues when the landing gear is coming up, and it makes the plane vibrate a little bit, and then you're going to hear the landing gear go up inside, and then you're going to hear the doors close. And sometimes those doors are loud and it sounds like a bang. But this card says this is normal. And that's the thing that always makes me feel a lot better, is knowing that this is what's happening and that it's normal gets me through that moment of those vibrations and maybe those banging sounds.
Okay, so another one. Cruising. This is in your deck. This is number 21.
Ooh, this might be one of my favorite cards.
Okay. Cruising altitude can provide the benefit of smoother air. This is usually when the captain will turn off the fastened seatbelt sign.
Right.
So sometimes it's okay to have your seatbelt off.
Yeah, and I think, you need to get up and use the restroom. And I've learned that sometimes if I get up and stretch, it gets rid of some of my anxiety. But I love cruising altitude and cruising speed because that is truly generally where the smoother air is. And that's why planes fly at, 32,000, 33,000 feet, because they want to get to smoother air. They want to get to thinner air.
So the higher it is, it's a little bit more. That makes
Right.
sense, because when you're like going through clouds,
Yeah.
it makes me think of that's kind of when it gets a little
Right.
be a little shaky.
Yeah, and I'm not an expert, but in my experience and from all of my research and talking to Captain Emma and Paul Tazard over at Lovefly, that is smoother air, because a lot of turbulence comes from air being pushed up from mountains, or air being moved around by the ocean or other aircraft. Mm-hmm. And when you're at a certain height, you're in smoother air, thinner air, which also helps the plane to fly faster and also use less fuel. So that's another reason why airlines like to fly at 33,000 feet. Mm-hmm. So that's my favorite part. So 30 minutes after takeoff, you're usually at cruising altitude, and you're in a pretty good space for the next however many hours before you've got to come back down to earth.
I know. Oh, that is so nice too when you're just cruising.
Right.
It's just a smooth flight. Everybody loves that.
Yeah.
How quickly can someone start using the flashcards once so it's nice because you have the version that you can hold in your hands, and then also an option to download. Is it like an app, or how does that work?
Yeah, so it's literally just a download. So you would go to our store at flightdeck365.com. There's a button you can click, and it takes you right into the store. You can download the cards, and what will happen is you pay for it, and you'll receive an email with a button. You'll click on the button, and they'll download right to your device. So it'll be whatever you want to use it for, your smartphone, your iPad, your computer, whatever you're going to take
your
on
tablet.
the plane with your tablet. Yeah.
That's so nice.
So I have it on my smartphone, but I will say that I love having the cards in my hands.
It's something about like holding them.
Yeah.
That makes you feel a little better, that you can just kind of like flip through it. I like that. I like having it. Well, or both. Maybe you want both. Maybe download it and have it in your hand.
Well, and here's an interesting thing. Pilots and flight attendants love these, because if someone like me were to get on the plane and tell them that I had a fear of flying, a flight attendant I have a friend who's a flight attendant. She actually used to work here at Channel 2 in sales. She will give you a code where you can download these to your phone instantly right there on the plane and use them right then and there. And pilots and flight attendants will tell you this helps them as much as it helps the passenger, because they don't have to spend as much time answering questions and sort of, I don't know if the right word is babysitting or attending to someone who has a fear of flying.
Sure.
Because these cards will answer a lot of those questions and be there for them.
Well, and you never know if somebody on your flight, maybe you're sitting next to someone that hasn't heard of these, is having an issue. You may be able to help someone sitting right next to you, as you're going through them and you see they're a little nervous, you could hand them over and help somebody else.
So I had a funny thing happen to me. I was flipping through my cards on a flight probably about 4 months ago. And even though I'm over my fear of flying, I still use my cards. I love having them. Like I said, they're my security blanket, and it's just a good reminder. But I was flipping through my cards, and the lady across the aisle said, "What are you doing? What are those cards?" And I told her, and she said she had a fear of flying. And so every time I flipped through a card, I handed it to her. So we were passing the cards back and forth, and she said they were a lifesaver. And I get emails from customers all the time that say, I lent my cards to my mom, I lent my cards to my friend, or someone on the plane also had a fear of flying. There was one lady who told me there were 5 people on the plane, and they were passing them around in kind of like a little circle.
Oh, that's so
and
cool.
It actually really touched me and made me feel good. I felt like I helped so many people that day just off one deck of cards.
Yeah, sure. And just how many people you're going to be able to help.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool to think about that. Have any airlines, I'm so interested in this, Brian, have any airlines officially endorsed or partnered with Flight Deck or Fear of Flying flashcards? Because I see it coming if it hasn't happened yet.
Right. So we are in talks with an airline, but I can't say who. Or where, or what, or why, or how.
The suspense.
But we are in talking to actually 3 different airlines right now. There's a couple in the UK and one in the United States that's interested in partnering with us. So
very cool. Can't wait to see what happens with that.
We're excited about that.
What advice would you give to someone who is currently struggling with the fear of flying, where it's holding them back from You know, you said like a wedding you almost didn't want to go to, or, you know, like things with our friends and our loved ones and making memories. What advice would you have for someone that's really scared to fly?
I would tell you, don't avoid it like I did for 30 years. Do something about it now, because someone in your family is going to pass away and you're going to need to get on a plane. And if you prepare for it now, or if you've got a vacation you want to go to in a year from now, start now. And the more time you have to prepare and learn, the better off you're going to be. I would listen to a lot of podcasts through the Love Fly group. And I would get a set of these cards, maybe even order some books and read them. But I think knowledge is really the key. Once you know what's going on that plane, and once you know how safe it really is, and how low the risk is that something would happen. And I know people like me that have a fear of flying don't care about odds, because we think we're the one that's going to be in that accident. But I've been on 20 flights in the last couple of years and not even had an incident. And I think most pilots will tell you they've flown for 20 or 30 years and not even had an incident. So it's very rare. We hear about it in the news a lot because it's that rare. And when it happens, it's kind of exciting and interesting and scary that something happened. And I think people with a fear of flying thrive on that. We want to know when and where and how the incident happened to protect ourselves from it. Another piece of advice that I would give is stop listening to those things. Whenever something came on the news or on television or on social media about an airplane incident, I would literally remove myself from it. I would turn off the TV or I would scroll on to something else, because I didn't want to continue to feed my fear. And that's something that really helped me a lot, because I would start to obsess about those incidents, and they could have been small things. They could have been like, a plane had to go around because there were birds or whatever. But,
right.
Not every incident is a major incident. And as we know, I mean, it's been many, many, many years since there was actually a death from an incident.
Yeah. I think that's really good advice, because everything is on our tablets and our phones, and we see every video and everything. That's good to like remove yourself from it too, because just because it necessarily was like a small incident and could make you think all these, that's really good advice. And you're living proof that this can help. I mean, before you wouldn't even fly, you'd walk on and off planes, and now you carry these, and it's changed you.
Yeah, it's really changed my life. I was the guy who convinced everyone to go on road trips. I literally have driven across this country. I had to go to New York for something, and I drove all the way there and all the way back. And I've taken trains all the way to New York and all the way back. And I can say I've been in every state in the United States, but it's because I was afraid to fly and I drove. And, what a great accomplishment, but just think how easy it would be to get on a flight and in an hour from now be at a great concert in Las Vegas, or 2 hours from now a great concert in San Diego.
Yeah, making those memories. Is there, before we wrap up, is there a quick story you can think of someone that it has helped, friend, family, or someone that's reached out? I know there's so many that you can tell us.
I literally get daily emails from people, and a touching story was, this might choke me up a little bit.
That's okay.
Because
you're compassionate about this. Yeah. You care.
Yeah, and I just really felt for this guy. But he's had a fear of flying his entire life. His entire family moved to Hawaii. He had to stay in Salt Lake because of his job. He has not seen his family in 20 years. And he bought the cards in order to fly over to Hawaii to see them, and successfully did it.
And he did it.
Yeah. And he hadn't seen his family in 20 years.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
Look at the lives you're changing, Brian. That's
I hope so, because that's the most important thing to me, is to be able to help people get over their fear of flying, just like I got over my fear of flying.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, when you're you're giving people, it's almost like their life back, where they can go experience things, and they can, fly to a concert, like you said, and go see family and take their own family, because maybe they're afraid, their kids aren't, but they want to go, and so they can take their families. And so it's amazing what you're doing. And
thank you.
I just can't wait to see the future.
Thank you.
I would like to ask you our Fresh 5 questions.
Oh, no. This is the part I was worried about. See, I know all about the cards, but I don't
We need flashcards for Fresh 5.
I don't know what you're about to ask me.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Sleep in or stay up?
So here's the thing. I think everybody knows this about me. I love to stay up all night, and I love to sleep in. So
so you're both.
That's a hard one, but
you can pick both.
I love to sleep in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Okay. Do you like to shop online, or are you an in-store person?
Oh, Amazon has taken my life away. You're in the kitchen doing something, and you realize you're out of dishwashing soap, and you just click the button, and
bam,
within a day or two, you've got dishwashing soap.
Yeah.
I do it all day long. Instead of making a shopping list, I'm literally
just one at a time on your phone,
stuff.
Making it convenient. Okay, we've talked about our fear of things. Here's one more fear of things.
Yeah.
What's scarier to you, snakes, clowns, or spiders?
This one is so easy. I am terrified, absolutely terrified of snakes, to the point, if I see a dead snake, I can't even move.
Even a dead snake?
Dead snake.
What about a garden snake with a little? Absolutely not.
No.
Okay.
So I was on a bike ride once, and we were driving up the canyon, and there was something that looked like a snake in the road. And so I creeped up near it, and it was a dead snake in the road. And I turned around and went back. I was like, we're leaving. I can't even be anywhere
I'm
near
moving out of this
even
city.
a dead snake.
Okay. Well, you knew right away. Snakes. Okay. Couple more. Comedy or drama movie?
Comedy.
You like to laugh.
Yes.
And last one. What makes Brian smile?
Ooh, so much, which I'm so thankful for. The smallest, the stupidest things can make me laugh, and I love it. I love to laugh, and I love humor and anything involved with laughing and smiling.
Well, we're smiling along with you, and congrats on the success of these cards. If we want to get our hands on these or download, we have that option as well.
Yeah.
What's the best place to go?
So if you go to our website, which is flightdeck365.com, because we're here to help you 365 days out of the year.
Oh, look at that.
There'll be a lot of information on there. There'll be testimonials. There'll be a video talking about the cards, and it'll tell you my story. It'll tell you Captain Emma's story. And then there'll be buttons throughout the website that say shop now. You can hit that button. It'll take you right over to the store. And we've got 4 or 5 different types of cards and downloads you can get. And we sell cases that you can put them in to keep them fresh and clean and organized. And we have some T-shirts that say your anxiety is lying to you, because that was a big thing for me. I feel like my anxiety was creating a lot of this for me.
Sure.
And so we created these shirts that say your anxiety is lying to you. So you can get all of that on our website at flightdeck365.com.
Okay, I'm going to go like this. Can you hear it? Here's the cards. You need them.
Okay, you know what's funny is, I don't know if you know this while you're doing that, but there's an animation of the plane taking off.
That is so cool.
Yeah, there's an animation of the plane taking off if you flip them through
so cool.
the corner.
You got to get your hands on these if you're afraid of flying, or maybe someone would be a great gift. Brian, thank you so much for joining us today. So good to chat with you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here.
And thank you for listening to another episode of Fresh Off the Set. Please rate, review, and subscribe, and we will see you next week. Congrats, you made it to the end. If you want to continue to freshen up your day, you can watch us on Fresh Living every weekday on CBS Channel 2 in Utah at 1 o'clock. You can also watch us on our YouTube channel, KUTV Fresh Living, and follow us on social media. We will see you next week.